Hi, it's Kevin May, Editor-in-Chief of PhocusWire, here in the PhocusWire studio with pros, and this is PundIT Show number 19. This is where we gather the great and good of the punditry world from travel technology and digital travel to talk about moments of the day, or indeed here, the moments of the week, because we're at the Aviation Festival. We've been here for 3 days. So, Sinead Finn, owner at Affinnity. Thank you, Sinead, for joining us. Mark Lenahan, officially our longest title of any podcast pundit we've ever had. You're the head of air and rail propositions at Travelport. I've got to ask you, what's a proposition in this term?
It's positioning, product marketing, product strategy.
Okay.
So, and how Travelport presents itself to the airline market and airline customers. And
okay.
Likewise, rail market.
Okay. And is that part of Travelport Digital, or is it part of the bigger mothership?
It's part of the bigger mothership
okay.
since the end of last year.
Okay. And for those that don't know, Affinnity is a consultancy, and you help people like those that are here, correct?
Correct. I help really to set up tech businesses with airlines, so to get contracts for tech businesses with airlines.
Okay.
So it's quite fun because obviously I'm an airline person through and through. That's what my background is. Mm-hmm. So I can get the ear of the airline. So
right. Okay. So we've got that out of the way.
Yeah.
Now we get down to the punditry. So right, we're right at the back end of 3 days of lots of airline stuff. So we're going to go through some talking points. Not exactly put you on the spot, but get your view on what you've been seeing. So, Mark, we'll start with you first. What has excited you this week?
Yeah, I'm not sure excited is the right word, but it's great to see that the whole sustainability and CO2 thing come bubble way up to the top of the agenda. You know, almost every airline CEO that's been on stage has addressed it. I think there's some good points that IATA made about, as an industry, we're not communicating what we're doing, what we can do and what we will do in the future, because I'm not sure who said it, but I think it might have been Johan from EasyJet. The travel connects people. The world needs travel. It's a counterbalancing force to, nationalism and everything else, and I think it's a benefit that's worth paying for.
What did you think? You were here on Wednesday, weren't you?
I didn't attend everything on because so many different shows going on.
Right.
So.
What did you think when you walked up the road and you saw the Extinction Rebellion people camped outside with their on the theme of the sustainability?
Yeah, I did see them. I think initially I was quite taken aback, because it was just when the lady was there and she was going to camera, so it was obviously very high agenda, very important. So initially I was taken aback because I've never seen anything like that at a conference before. But at the same time, I was quite excited by it because I think, it just raises everything around travel in general. And it's nice to see, I like seeing outside people coming in and, having a say. I think it's just interesting.
Yeah, I mean, sustainability and green travel and things like that I think has been off the agenda of most conferences over the years. And as you say, it's now they're all talking about it.
Did you go and talk to them?
I spoke to the police. Well, I'm a journalist. They were in the middle of a rabble-rousing speech, so I thought I'd go over and talk to the old bill that was standing there just to see what they thought of it all. I think you're right. There has been a bit of an uptick in the conversation. Yeah. I think the proof is in whether that conversation continues into following years, rather than it just being, because this year is air shaming and there's been stuff in Scandinavia and things like that. From what I hear, there may be a thread next year at this conference around green issues. Yeah,
I think you have to go back as well to look at the consumer. So, when we look at travel, we always think of the consumer, and the consumer is not going to stop flying. So it's just what is it that we can do as an industry to offset what's happening to the environment, and that really is the key question. So hopefully, if those issues are raised next year, I think it would be make for a very interesting conference.
And I suppose the more consumers are talking about it, like you say, they can't keep doing it as lip service. It actually does become a thing, I suppose. Anyway, well, let's move on from it's excited you. What excited you, Sinead?
For me, it was the battle of the apps. I was blown away by the battle of the apps because
the moderator, possibly?
Oh, yeah, you did moderate it. I forgot that.
Forgettable.
I know, moderators. So no, it was.
Thanks for forgetting, by the way.
No, I'm only joking. I could never forget you, Kevin. No, it was fantastic. I'm not somebody who goes and actively, downloads any app. I just download apps that are relevant to me. That's only a couple of airline apps. I was blown away by comparison to the apps I have downloaded, how far some of these apps have moved in a very, very short space of time. And it just really, I loved it. I love the idea of, wow, where is this going to be in another year? Because it seems to change on a monthly basis. Yeah. Probably on a daily basis.
Now, if you were one of the judges, which one would have won for you? Are you allowed to say? Or is one of them your clients?
I loved Turkish as a presentation.
It looked terrific, the graphics and everything.
It was amazing. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. But I think the right airline won. I think EasyJet deserved to win. And they won. So is the connection here?
Because he has to say
the
that.
The Travelport team in Dublin design, build and maintain that app.
Really?
So
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
so apart
very,
from
very happy for the team, actually.
So beyond the happiness, any observations about the app competition?
Going in and helping Dan and Glenville prepare for the app, I can say they felt they had really strong competition, and we know it was very close. There's a lot of really feature-rich apps out there, but I think EasyJet, what put them across the line is just that wow factor. They can do that extra little bit of wow and creativity in their app, and it's one of the things that sometimes the low-cost carriers actually are better at that stuff. They've got inherently they're more flexibility. And innovation is closer to their DNA, and sometimes that's why they tend to go a little bit out ahead of the bigger guys.
Yeah, I mean, for the viewers and listeners, the way it worked was that the judges had been testing these apps and playing with them for the last 6 weeks or so, and then they had a certain number of points, and then there was enough points made available at the end, which is the power of the presentation, which is why they pitched here on Wednesday, and I got all the pre-scores from the judges on Monday night, and it was terrific because they were so close that you knew that whatever happened in the room on Wednesday, rather than it already being a winner before we actually got to it, which would have made the competition
came down to the last round.
It actually came down to the power of the presentation. Now, sorry, go.
I think it would have been interesting to put it out to the audience. As well.
So weight it that way as well.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting to see what might have happened in that sense. But I definitely, what you say is right, Kevin. There was definite sense that they were all quite even, 5 in total, and they all had really great app. They had a fantastic app, so I can see how it would have been difficult for the judges.
Yeah, EasyJet and KLM got the biggest cheers.
Is KLM also?
And the interesting thing about those two is that there was this great little bit of banter going on between them because KLM pitched first, and they made some
Marissa
bold claims.
Pointed out though that actually we didn't claim that the bag scanning was first. It was featured by App in the Air 3 years ago in IATA NEC.
Okay.
So, they were the first ones to do it, and and then there's a number of airlines that implemented it.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny that they'd obviously listened to the claims at the beginning. It was quickly writing them down on a piece of paper because he took the piece of paper up with him on the presentation and then read them out as well.
What I also liked was
being responsive, right?
I also liked the heckling. You very rarely get the audience involved. And for me, I thought the heckling was brilliant. And the other thing is just we're used to seeing, new companies who pitch to airlines. We're all used to seeing them pitching Lions Den, pitching, their businesses, and we'll see more this afternoon with the new businesses, startups. But we rarely see airlines doing that. Yeah. Airlines are usually the ones judging. Yeah. And what I loved was we finally were seeing some airlines up on the stage, presenting their products.
Yep. Okay. Well, I mean, one of the interesting conversations we've already had is, I think the organisers and myself just thought it was a really good session. It was funny, and there was actually some really valuable stuff I think that people would have learned from hearing the presentations and things. Can you repeat it next year? I guess the problem is that mobile apps don't actually evolve that much over 12 months. So the question is now, if you want, because the battle format's great, everyone was really into it.
Right.
So what can we have? A battle of
a whole bunch of new apps we'll enter and we'll enter again.
I suppose it's a battle of the mobile apps is, say this quietly, is perhaps infinitely more exciting than the battle of the revenue management systems or something.
Yeah. Look at our graphs. Aren't our graphs good?
Our numbers are terrific. Right, okay, let's move on. Sinead, you first. Eye roll moments. You've sat there and you were going, oh my goodness.
Okay, well, I think we really go around the houses every year since 2010 about personalization. And still, it is quite frustrating that airlines still haven't managed to crack that one when it is so important. And, it shouldn't be that difficult. And I think it is something that should be, I've always said this, at a high agenda. So it should be the CEO setting the agenda for how to communicate to its customers, because that, after all, is the most important, important thing that an airline does, communicating to customers and selling the right product, the right place at the right time to the customer. And we still don't seem to be there.
Yeah, I think after hearing that phrase, the right product to the right, I roll myself then, because you do kind of get it every second presentation, right? Mark?
Well, eye roll moment for me was, my eyes rolled a little bit during the whole space thing at the beginning.
Right.
And not because I'm not a massive geek and I love space rockets, but a lot of this stuff is being brought to a transport conference when it's really nothing to do with transport. It's space exploration is its own thing. It's a worthy endeavor. And insofar as it's a tourism thing, it's not transport at all. It's a super rich destination activity. And I think, we're talking a long, long period of time before it actually starts to impact transport. Where technology is going to have an impact is in things like, partial electric flights, like electric takeoff or electric on the ground, better fuel efficiency, all of that stuff is going to have a big impact.
Yeah, and it's arguably more important.
Biometrics is another one that one of the airline CEOs called out. It's maybe not as fun as rockets, but it was interesting.
It's arguably more important because it affects more people rather than the elites like yourself who've probably bought a ticket for an orbit around Mars already, Mark. Okay.
I'm already in orbit around Mars.
Before we go to some of the moment aspects, one thing, test my theory here a little bit. One of the things I kind of sensed this week, especially after moderating the retail summit for this is my 4th year, is in the first year, certainly less so the second year, there was a lot of people were in the audience and they were scribbling notes, and you felt that they were being educated, especially about retailing and things like that. And now you watch the audience a lot as a moderator, as you well know, and people are sitting there and there's less note scribbling and more kind of, so that's what they're doing. So my theory, if I can call it a theory, is that the market is maturing, the airlines are maturing because they've actually now done a lot of this stuff. And now they're just trying to see how the competition does it, rather than, okay, how do we do that? Does that make sense? Do you agree or not?
Yeah,
You're allowed to disagree.
Yeah, well, in the last 4 years, things have moved on immensely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think probably what's moved on more than the low-cost carriers are the legacy carriers. They've really taken ancillaries more seriously than ever before, and how they promote ancillaries to their customers. And I think so. Yeah, I think that definitely has moved forward. And it's great to see. I also think it's something that was mentioned a lot in the last few days was Netflix, for example. I think that vendors have made it a lot more simple to understand what they do. So what they've done is they said, if, for example, they've got a subscription model, they've likened it to Netflix, so that it's much easier, because as a consumer, everybody's using Netflix and Amazon, and we've always spoken about Amazon anyway, but Netflix I've heard a lot this week. And I think
Volaris is the airline that calls itself the Spotify or the Netflix mod, that kind of VPass thing that they've created.
Exactly.
Isn't it? Yeah.
So I think there's a wider market movement on, and we're moving with that. So the airlines are moving with that. In many cases as well, what I have found this week is actually racing ahead. So we've always looked, airlines, everybody's always said, oh, look at what eBay does and look what Amazon does. But I think a lot of airlines have really caught up on that, and they've actually jumped. That was apparent with the apps, for example, and lots of other products that I've seen this week and how they market their products. So I think you're right. I think we've got to the day where we can say, no, look, we're good. We're good as an industry. What we're doing is, fast forwarding. So I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Just as a kind of on that point, there was a gentleman from Frontier Airlines who was presenting in the retail thing. And they hired him from Amazon. He's an ex-Amazon kind of number cruncher, and his presentation was great. But that's the way airlines are thinking. Let's hire from the outside, from those kind of platforms and marketplaces, so that we can learn stuff. Sorry, Mark, after you.
No, I was going to agree with you. I mean, a large part of retailing and airline industry retailing is the new IATA program for the industry that replaces Simplifying the Business since last year. A key part of retailing is that your organization structure has to be set up as a retailer. You actually have to be retailer end to end. It's not just buy a piece of technology, install it on your website, now you're a retailer. It actually has to completely, cover the way you organize yourself. The other thing that's happened in the last 5 years is that the technology from the PSS all the way up to the top of the stack, like the consumer web and mobile and the airline APIs, all of that technology has matured a lot. So, 5 years ago when they were scribbling notes, they were looking at amazing stuff that they had no chance of doing.
Yeah.
Now they're taking notes of what the other guys are doing, because a lot of times if they think that's a good idea, they can go back and they can test it in the market relatively quickly. Okay. Just because that technology stack has matured in that sort of merchandising, offer management area.
Okay, right, back to our moments. Let's go with surprising moments, if you can think of any.
Surprising.
Mark? What are you thinking, Sinead?
I'm difficult to surprise. I'm just too old.
Fine.
There was some conversation about rail, and I sort of reluctant to name the airline because I quite disagree with them. But the whole idea of high speed rail, I think the numbers were if it was 2 hours, you'd lose 80% of your traffic to rail, and if it was 3 hours, you'd lose 50% of your traffic to rail. So right. that's the impact high speed rail has on the flights competition. And
we know what's happened with London to Paris because of the Eurostar.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that I look at that and I go, well, if airlines were really serious about being retailers that happen to fly planes, well, why aren't they incorporating this into their transport products? Why aren't they cooperating, right? Yeah. If airlines were cooperating with rail, that's a big way to offset CO2, and they're becoming travel retailers. If the end result is what matters, then you pick the best product for the passenger experience and maybe the best product for the planet. You know?
Yeah.
And that was like, I'm surprised that there isn't more talk about how industries can cooperate to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much a surprising moment, but an interesting kind of one of the. I moderated a panel in the retail thing, and there was a gentleman on there from Booking.com, and his title is head of or managing director of transport division at Booking.com. And when I introduced him at the beginning, I said to the audience, hands up who knew that Booking.com had a transport division, and there were like 6 hands out of 100. So the fact that a company like Booking.com, with its prowess in hotels and everything, is now looking at how it can connect all these different kind of dots. And as you say, airlines aren't thinking about that. They're all talking about being marketplaces and retailers, but one of the other big companies in this space is already thinking about it. Right?
Actually, on the transport issue, actually a surprising moment for me was in Aileen O'Mahony's, or Aileen McCormack, because now I knew her before she was married, but she's now Aileen McCormack from Cartroller, to see the shift in airport passenger behaviour. For example, what she was saying, that less people, and I can't remember the percentages, are parking their cars and more people are taking transfers, which I find fantastic. And I suppose it feeds into the environmental issue as well, and probably a younger profile of people traveling and how we're changing as we travel as well, how we're more inclined to take public transport, the bus, the train, rather than drive our cars, park at the airport and come back and see it a week later. So I found that was a surprising moment.
It's mobility, as we're now supposed to call it.
Yeah.
Mobility.
Mobility on demand.
Mobility on demand. Okay, right. Let's start getting towards the end then. So, refreshing moments, Mark.
I was quite refreshed by some of what Finnair are doing. I really enjoyed that presentation.
Okay.
I enjoyed a lot of the marketing presentations. Very educational event. This.
Can you
see how?
Give us 20 seconds on what Finnair is doing for the.
What Finnair is doing
listeners?
is in line with this trend of super apps, especially in China. Finnair, what's really interesting for me is that they have got the full booking process on WeChat. So literally from shop through to book, through to payment in the Chinese market on WeChat.
Yeah.
And of course they have to do that because they're the largest non-Chinese carrier in terms of lift out of China, which is the other surprising thing about Finnair is they really are the airline for connecting.
Well, they're doing the hub and spoke out of Helsinki.
Essentially, Sixth Freedom through Helsinki as a model for accessing the Chinese market.
Okay, for you?
For me, I think it's the way airlines are approaching the holidays product. So, for years there's been talk about, holidays, and obviously BA has its holidays product and EasyJet has its holidays product, and airlines in general, and particularly the low-cost carriers, look at this area and wonder, is there a way of getting rid of the distressed inventory, or how do we do that? Is it we set up a holiday product? But what I liked is how airlines now seem to be looking at the holiday product and how it's doesn't necessarily have to be the traditional holiday product, but they're looking to see, again, I suppose, selling something not necessarily within a package, but not this idea of package, but having the right products for the customer and whatever that product is, and that being the holiday. So if the customer wants the hotel, just the hotel and the flight, or if the customer wants the transfer and the flight, and how they promote that, and how airlines are looking at doing that, because that is an area which is doesn't work for every airline, and probably doesn't work for every airline because airlines are not looking at it with their own customer in mind, or what their own customer is looking at. And I thought that was good to see.
Yeah. I mean, on that, Volaris presented. They've just launched something called the name's gone. We'll put it on the subtitle. But they've just launched something very similar. And I said during the Q&A afterwards, I said, there's been a very high-profile airline in Europe, low-cost carrier, that launched a holidays product, and it didn't last very long. Why you're going down that route? What do you think is going to be your point of difference? You said, we're thinking, rather than trying to do it for every destination that we fly to, it's for Mexicans in Mexico. So they've just been very, very defined as to the way they do it, which I thought was quite an interesting point.
Juliana is a very, very impressive lady, and what she has done for Volaris and with Volaris, very, very impressive.
Yeah,
she knows what she's doing. She doesn't leave a stone unturned. She checks everything. She's very, very thorough. So I'm quite sure that her holidays product will work for her. Okay,
right. Let's last of all then, funniest moment for you, please, Mark.
I'm thinking probably the funniest moment might have happened in the narrow boat or one of the other pubs around here. It was. I did have a laugh. There was one airline CEO, and they know who they are, who referred to the overhead bins as a hat rack. But slip of the tongue. But it was funny.
Right, okay. Sinead.
Okay, well, my funniest moment has to have been moderating and trying to keep. So I really love keeping everything to time. I'm really like, being on time at all times. But I had a challenging speaker who I realized was on slide 11 and still had 24 more slides to go or something. And I had a panel session as well, which was running later in the day, and I thought everything's just going to get destroyed by this. But we sorted it all out in the end. But it is every moderator's worst nightmare. But I took it all in good spirit, and yeah.
Very good. Okay, right, we wrapped up talking of time, I did promise you that we would be done before 30 minutes, and we are. So
Super.
thank you very much. Right, just goes to say thank you very much to Sinead Finn, Mark Lenahan. This was PundIT Show number 19. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.